Hey fellow musician, welcome to Audio Spectra, and in today's tutorial I'll be talking about vocal reverb secrets. I'll be sharing with you 3 vocal reverb secrets which will help you get the perfect vocal reverb sound on any mix, no matter the genre. The goal here is to help you eliminate all the guesswork whenever you're applying a reverb on a vocal. Let's get straight into it then. Tip number 1 is the Abbey vocal reverb trick. This one is a classic. It usually works well if you want to add intimacy and depth in a mix. So let's check it out and listen to how it sounds, and then I'll explain the settings later on.
Well, here we go again, talking about the same old thing, about love and matrimony and the happiness it brings. But as for me, I'm not convinced. The way you do, it makes no sense. Can't keep pretending, cause you leave me wondering. Well, here we go again, talking about the same old thing, about love and matrimony and the happiness it brings. But as for me, I'm not convinced. The way you do, it makes no sense. Can't keep pretending, cause you leave me wondering.
So as you can hear, without the vocal reverb, the lead vocal sounds way too upfront and in your face. So with the reverb, it gets pushed back in the mix and then it fits well with the rest of the instrumentation. The settings are really straightforward. We have a plate reverb because a plate reverb is usually short. As you can see, the reverb time is around 900 milliseconds. So this pushes the vocal at the back of the mix while keeping it up front. The most important part of getting this sound is the EQ. As you can see, I have a high-pass filter around 400 Hz. This high-pass filter removes all the rumble and all the muddy frequencies in the lower mid-range. And then I have a low-pass filter till around 10 kHz to remove all the sibilants, to make sure that the vocal reverb doesn't introduce more sibilants to the mix. And then I also have a cut at around 2.5 kHz. As you can see, this is a very small cut. This cut is not always necessary, but for this song, it was necessary because the vocal reverb sound was introducing some harshness, so I had to reduce that a bit. So let me play the reverb with and without the EQ so that you can be able to hear the difference.
Well, here we go again, talking about the same old thing, about love and matrimony and the happiness it brings. But as for me, I'm not convinced. The way you do, it makes no sense. Can't keep pretending, cause you leave me wondering. Well, here we go again, talking about the same old thing, about love and matrimony and the happiness it brings. But as for me, I'm not convinced. The way you do, it makes no sense. Can't keep pretending.
So as you can hear, with the EQ engaged, the vocal sounds much more cleaner, and with the EQ disengaged, the vocal sound muddy and it has a lot of sibilants and some harshness. So that's why the EQ is really important for this Abbey vocal trick. This one is a classic. It adds more intimacy and depth to your vocals. And then for tip number 2, this one, you use it if you want to add more width and some brightness to your vocals. So let's check it out.
Well, here we go again, talking about the same old thing, about love and matrimony and the happiness it brings. But as for me, I'm not convinced. The way you do, it makes no sense. Can't keep pretending, cause you leave me wondering. Well, here we go again, talking about the same old thing, about love and matrimony and the happiness it brings. But as for me, I'm not convinced. The way you do, it makes no sense.
Same thing again. Without the reverb, the vocal sounds way too upfront, but with the reverb, the vocal sounds much more open, it's wider, and it's a bit brighter. And the good thing is that this reverb plugin has a drive knob which adds some harmonics, which brightens up the vocal, and this width knob also works well to widen up the lead vocal. Since the vocal is mono, this helps the vocal open up and it fits well with the rest of the instrumentation because the instrumentation is much more wider. And that's it for tip number 2. And obviously, you always want to keep the reverb time short so that you get that intimacy and keep the vocal up front without pushing it further at the back. And then for tip number 3, You would use tip number 3 if you want to add more warmth and density to your vocal reverb sound. So this one works well if you're working on a thin sounding vocal. This one will add more richness and make your vocal sound much more thicker. So let's check it out and then I'll explain the settings later on.
Well, here we go again, talking about the same old thing. About love and matrimony and the happiness it brings. But as for me, I'm not convinced. The way you do, it makes no sense. Can't keep pretending, cause you leave me wondering. Well, here we go again, talking about the same old thing. About love and matrimony and the happiness it brings. But as for me, I'm not convinced. The way you do, it makes no sense.
This one is working very well for this particular song because it's making the vocal sound much more richer and it thickens up the mid-range to help the vocal fit well with the rest of the instrumentation without being overpowered by the rest of the instrumentation, and it pockets the vocal very well. And the settings are really simple. It's an EQ with a low pass filter to around 6 kilohertz to remove all the high frequencies so that we introduce some warmth to the lead vocal. And then another thing that makes this vocal sound much more richer is because we have two reverbs working at the same time. So we have a chamber and then we have a room as well. So the chamber is the one that's adding a bit of the low mid range, and then the room is short and it's adding intimacy. That's it for today. Take good care of yourself, and please don't forget to subscribe if you like the video so that you get notified whenever I upload a new video. And leave a comment below if you have any questions. We'll talk again soon. Cheers.